Hello again, everyone. It's This Week in Agribusiness meteorologist Greg Soulje in for Max Armstrong. Welcome to Farm Progress Dateline Drought. Our coverage of the drought of 2012 is brought to you by Genuity Drought Guard Hybrids. Well, that's a better feel out there, I'm sure, in the wake of those enormous late-week rains that came on through much of the central Corn Belt, especially east of the Mississippi. Cool bubble of high pressure has made its presence felt, although a couple of instability showers have played out as well over areas of the Midwest and the Great Lakes region. Those will be moving out over the next 12 to 24 hours, or at least the mechanism for that. Otherwise, it is high pressure that takes hold and sticks around through the middle part of the week. A very comfortable go of it for outdoor work, livestock duties, prepping for, even revving up harvest operations. We're seeing some of that over the far west and southern sections of the Corn Belt, and getting ready, too, for Farm Progress over at Boone, Iowa. We'll keep an eye on weather for you here in the next week to 10 days. There is some inkling of maybe a couple of thunderstorm outbreaks there, and temperatures just either side of seasonal norms. That would put it generally into the upper 70s to middle 80s. But back closer to home, the feds have come out with at least their thoughts, their thinking on how the drought plays out over the next 2 to 3 months, relatively in line with our thinking is here, with some sense of a weak El Nino that is certainly warming of those central Pacific water temperatures. It will certainly readjust the upper air pattern with a strong northern branch of the jet that's probably going to deliver some early season cold, and by mid to late autumn, significant recharge is anticipated over a wide area of the eastern plains and much of the Midwest corn and bean complex as well. But at least from the Fed standpoint, as we take a look at things through the end of November, good news with areas of improvement scheduled for sections of the Dakotas, the upper Midwest, more so as you venture into sections of the central and eastern Corn Belt, some western locales too. Very widespread, persistent drought pattern to hold on to across much of the heartland. We're not really in line with that thinking. We think down the line into the later fall and winter season, there should be some recharge, getting going a long way to go to bring things back to normal. There's a statistic out that says you need about an inch of moisture now through about the end of October to get some areas of the Midwest back to normal soil moisture. That also applies to sections of the Great Plains too, so a long way to go. Meanwhile, improvement continues in the southwest with late season monsoon moisture, and by this indication here, we'll be nibbling away at the last of drought and maybe some tropical systems still below average, the number from our vantage point. Nonetheless, the moisture improvement is expected over sections of the southeastern states over the next 2 to 3 months. That's a check on weather. Now over to Bryce Knorr and a look at markets.
One of the factors I look at every day in the market normally doesn't come into play much. But occasionally, volume in the futures trade can raise some red flags. That's why it's wise not to read too much into today's rally. Though prices indeed rose sharply, low volume trade continues that could be inflating the impact of that buying by speculative hedge funds. Nonetheless, prices rose across the board, led by soybeans, where nearby September futures moved back above $17. November also posted good gains, ending 37 3/4 higher at 1683.5, closing on their highs. Buying came from a couple of sources. First, only a 1% improvement in crop ratings was expected this week, and that's just what USDA reported. Most states improved. Declines were noted only from the Delta into Kansas, the area that's been hardest hit by the drought. The improvement added a little more than quarter bushel of yield potential to the crop nationwide, with my model putting the yield at 36.4 bushels per acre. China was also in the news for a couple reasons. First, it shipped out 53% of the week's 21.4 million bushels of inspections, and traders are also watching potential for a cyclone to affect the country's northern production area next week. That storm could also take the top off of what was thought to be a record corn crop in China, though other storm tracks show a more southerly route. China also took 4.3 million bushels of corn in today's inspections tally, while USDA separately announced the sale of another 4.3 million bushels to Mexico. After the close, the EPA announced it was starting a 30-day comment period on requests to waive the renewable fuels standard for ethanol production. That shift likely wouldn't affect corn demand much this year, however. December futures rallied almost up to their 61.8% retracement of the sell-off from all-time highs, closing at 823 3/4, up 16.5. Monday's crop rating stayed unchanged overall nationally, with 23% of the crop rated good to excellent. Wheat prices again were the follower today. Hopes for U.S. exports were given a lift by more talk about lower Russian production. Export inspections, which were released after the close today due to technical problems at USDA, came in at 23.4 million bushels, beating trade guesses. The USDA is no longer reporting spring wheat conditions because there is not much of it left out in the field. 79% of the spring wheat crop is harvested compared to 40% on average. September futures finished up 5 cents at 8.79.5. Kansas City gained 5.5 to 8.91. And Minneapolis finished 3.5 higher at 9.31. Keep up with the drought situation across the country by visiting www.datelinedrought.com.